Okay, welcome back. We just finished talking about how all this thing is put together with the Java file and the XML file. Okay. By the way, when you turn in an assignment that contains Java work, you're going to have to turn in basically two files. Well, at least two files. You know, the Java files that are under this folder and the XML files that are under the resources folder. Okay, so on page 46. I'm just gonna follow along basically what's in the book. I'm not gonna do every single example in the book because that's really your job to do that, right? I'm supposed to be your instructor, not doing what the book says. That's what you're supposed to do. So we're gonna add a button on page 46. So one of the things I need to do is I can go to buttons, plural, and find me a button. Or you see in this common palette, there's a button. Okay, so I'm just going to drag this button guy, and I'm just going to drag him on the screen about where I want him, somewhere right around in here. Doesn't really matter. And then I get this little red ball that pops up and says, hey, dude, there's some issues here. And I'm thinking, what? All I did was drag and drop a button. How in the world can there be any issues? Well, the problem is that it's basic. If it says, this view is not constrained. A view is, oh, by the way, a view is yet another name for a control or a widget. So control, widget, or view, okay, is not constrained. It only has design time position. In other words, I put it there at design time. So it will jump to 0, 0 unless you add the constraints. Ooh, cool. Well, so I'm going to do this. I'm going to hit the attributes button or tab, whatever this thing is, and it's going to show me what these constraints are. Well, right now they're nothing. So I could go in here and I can just say I want to just click on that, and it's going to do the measurement for me. Okay, isn't that pretty cool? So in other words, I didn't have to go in there and say exactly what I wanted. I could just click on the thing. Isn't that pretty neat? And so that made the red thing go away. Well, I still have a yellow. And the yellow basically says, if I can get it to stay there, hard coding the string button is not best practices. Now, for this purposes, I'm going to ignore that, okay? I'm just saying, I'm just flat not going to do that in this particular case. I'm just going to leave that alone. Okay, so there's another way you can do this about the constraints. In fact, I'm going to whack this guy and start over. So I'm just going to hit the delete key. Oh, no, I'm not. I'm going to delete this guy. Doink. And we're going to try that again. I'm going to grab the button and drop it on here. And I'm going to get kind of sort of the same message that, hey, we got a problem here. And then there's this cool little thing called a little wand, like magic wand. And the magic wand says infer constraints. And what it's going to do, it's going to do it for me. It's going to go in there and say, well, most likely you wanted this thing kind of sort of centered. And in this case, 63 pixels above the other thing. Okay? That way I didn't have to go into attributes and doing anything. It just kind of did it for me. Now, it may not do absolutely everything the way you want, but it's a good start. At least makes a little red thing go away. Okay? So, let's try this thing out. I'm going to run it. Now, if you have your emulator up and running, by the way, I almost always recommend that you start the emulator first. Before you even get anywhere into your application, start your emulator first. The reason behind this is it takes a long time for the emulator to come up, and it just makes it so much easier if you just leave this guy running. All right, so I'm going to go over here and click this. I actually have to, let me get this guy back up into view. And what it's going to do is going to compile my program, and then it's going to send it over to my emulator, and I'll get to see what my guy does. So, we just wait a minute. Okay, finally, it popped up and said success. So here's my application with a button. Hey, I'm going to click on the button. Well, it doesn't do anything. Well, that's because I haven't written a button event handler, which is what we're going to do next. Now, I typically, it's okay to leave this thing running with our current guy, but I'm going to go ahead and just hit stop, just for the heck of it. So that's going to stop the app, and if you go back to view this guy, he's going to be just a naked emulator now, which is okay. Okay, So what we're going to do to get this guy to work is I'm going to go here to the attributes for my button and scroll on down to it. I can get to one of the things that says on click. Okay? And this is going to be the name of a method that we're going to have as our event handler. I'm going to call it top click. Okay? That's what the name of it is. Cool. The name of the method. Now, to tell you the honest to God truth, that doesn't exist, right? You know, it comes up here and says, I don't know what it's going to say. I don't know what you're smoking, but that don't exist. Oh, come on. Yeah. It says, I don't know what you're smoking. That doesn't exist yet. Well, that's okay. So let's go over here to main activity, and we're going to type. So, you know, if you remember from the Java class, I need to keep everything kind of in line. So inside my main activity class, but not inside the onCreated. So below that guy, I need to type some stuff. I need to create a public void top click, and then I need to pass to it a thing called a view. Okay. Now, I got a red squiggly thing saying, hey man, view? What the heck are you talking about? I've never heard anything about a view. So if you hover over this thing, it says, can't resolve that. Would you like me to fix it for you? And one of the answers is import class. And doink! Now, I mentioned that I rarely go up here and look at this, but now I'm gonna, because I added something called a view. Cool. All right, so inside here, I'm going to put in some stuff that displays something to the log file and displays something on the screen. So just to speed things up, I've got this already put together, so I'm just gonna copy and paste this just so I don't have to spend much time doing typing. Okay, and once again, this is toast. What the hell is toast? Well, so I'm going to do the import. It's going to say log. What the heck is log? Well, all right, fine. I'll click on that too. Now, we're not getting into what it is we just did, okay? There's a thing called toast. Toast is a way to have a pop-up message, and it's called toast because it comes up from the bottom like toast would come out of a toaster. You know, it pops up and then goes back away. And then the log is basically it says I want to write something to this log file, okay? So now I'm going to run the application again, which of course is going to compile the guy. And operation success. So now here's my button, and I'm going to click on it, and down at the bottom it says top button clicked. Cool. Now, wait, let's go to the log file and see what it did. So I'm going to go to logcat, and I told it I wanted it to only talk about information, and there it is. It says the user clicked the top button. So this is a way that you can get output to be able to see what's going on inside your application. Toast meaning it's immediately viewable in the application, in the design, you know, in the emulator or on the real device. And this second one, this log guy, it's just like database log. I mean, it's just logging information inside this environment. After you run the application on the device, this thing that says the user clicked the top button never appears on the device at all. So these logs are really just for you during development, okay? They're not useful at all in any other context, okay? Now, I'm going to make another button. So because I already have a button, I've kind of got it the way I want, I'm going to go in and just like do a copy and paste from the XML file, okay? Cool. So I'm going to stop this guy, and then I'm going to go over here to the XML file. Now, if I switch over to the code view, I'm going to make this go away to give me a little bit more room. You see I have this thing called a button. Cool? Well, I'm just going to copy and paste this guy, okay? So I'm going to copy and paste this guy. You know, I'm using the keyboard shortcuts, Control-C. And I'm going to scroll down a little bit and do Control-V to get two of these guys. And bam, I got red text one more time. Why is that? Well, one of the things that's in the XML file is basically a variable name, okay? And so we have a variable name called button2. If you recall, I had a button 1, but I deleted it, so this one's called button 2. Well, I can't have two things with the exact same name, so I'm going to have to change one of these guys to button 3, okay? And this time I'm going to do everything from the XML file. I'm not going to go over hit properties or anything. Okay, so everything else basically is pretty straightforward. See the on click? I'm gonna change that to bottom click. Now this doesn't exist yet, so I'm not gonna fix that. But right now, it's gonna show up exactly on top of the other guy. So I'm gonna change this bottom thing to actually this. If I make this actually bigger, right? Because I don't want the. I tell you what, let's don't do that. Okay, I'm just gonna go back to the designer, and so I've got two buttons, but they're smack dab on top of each other, right? I can't have that, right? So I need a way to separate them. So all I'm gonna do is just add, like, instead of having the bottom margin be 63, I'm gonna make it 163. Let's go back to the design. Cool. All right. So now I have button 1 and button 2. Cool beans? Because I made one of them. Let's see how it works. I copied and pasted, and then I had to go in and change the name of it. Maybe I should probably even change the text in it, inside of it, so it doesn't. That would kind of make sense too. So this is actually, I got these backwards now. This is actually the button top, and this one's going to be called button bottom. Although I actually have them backwards because my bottom one is actually on top. But don't worry about that. That's not really relevant. So now I need something called bottom click. Cool. Let's go back to here. I'm going to just go back to my thing. Whoa, stop. And just grab all this so I don't have to type while you guys are watching. Whoa, that's not what I wanted. Let's undo. Control C. Phew, that was weird. Okay, and then I'm just going to go down to here, do Control V. All right, so now I have one called bottom click, and in theory, everything should work. So let's fire it up and see what happens. Okie dokie. So now I have a top button and bottom button, even though I've got them backwards, but who cares, right? So the bottom button says the bottom button was clicked, and the top button says the top button was clicked. Okay, this is kind of sort of simple, isn't it? Now you may have noticed that the technique that I use for copying the button is a little different from the book, but that's okay. So let's continue. On page 58, we're talking about comments now. So I want to go to my code here, and I want to put in some comments. So in Java, there's two ways you can do this. You can do what's called a line comment like that, which is just // and I can say, this is the event handler for the top button. There's another way you can do it, which is called a multi-line guy, and it starts with a like this, and then ends with another one. Now, just for pretty, this is not required. I tend to put an asterisk in between. Now, this asterisk in between is not required. It's just, I like to see the asterisks lined up. That's just me. So then I could say, this is a multi-line comment, and then just kind of keep going. This is the event handler for the bottom button. Cool? Kind of makes sense? All right. If I was to do this in XML, I could go down here and put a comment here. Comments in XML are different. They start with an exclamation and a dash dash. This is a comment. And then end with a dash dash like that. Okay, we're coming up on the 15-minute mark, so you know how this works.